There's something unsettling about returning to a place that knows your childhood, but refuses to see your adulthood. I arrived at my parents' house just as the sun dipped behind the trees. Their colonial-style home looked postcard perfect in the snow, lights twinkling in every window, wreaths on the door like well-rehearsed smiles. It was the same house where we'd posed for family portraits in matching sweaters, the same house where I'd been told countless times to stay in my place. That place apparently hadn't changed. I'm Ethan, youngest of 3, 30 years old. I design book covers for a living, live downtown in a studio that's small but mine, and enjoy the solitude most people find unbearable. But to my family, to my mother especially, I'm still the boy who spilled cranberry sauce in 2002 and cried when Isabel told me Santa wasn't real. This Christmas wasn't supposed to be different, but I had hoped it would at least be tolerable. Inside, the house was buzzing with activity. Isabel, my sister, the golden child, the courtroom conqueror, was arranging cutlery like it was a deposition. Her husband David followed behind with their 2 kids, already dressed in matching outfits and impossible expectations. Then came Rachel, our youngest sister by age, but never by treatment. She'd married a quiet man named Leo, had a toddler on her hip, and a Pinterest-perfect life to flaunt in soft tones. They greeted me politely. Rachel offered a hug. It landed with the enthusiasm of a grocery store receipt. And then there was Eleanor, our mother. She emerged from the kitchen in a cranberry-coloured dress, smiling like it cost her something. "Ethan, darling," she said, pulling me in with an air kiss. "I'm so glad you made it. Go ahead and grab your seat." I was about to ask where, but she'd already turned back to the clinking of dishes and the muted perfection she curated so well. From the dining room, I heard the unmistakable voice of Thomas, my father, still loud, still commanding. "Let's get everyone settled. Dinner's about ready." That's when Eleanor reappeared, brushing imaginary dust off her apron like she was adjusting the atmosphere. "Oh," she added, almost as an afterthought, "we've set up a place for you at the kids' table. With the cousins. It's cozier, cozy." The word hung in the air like smoke. And just like that, the stage was set for another year of polite dismissal wrapped in holiday decor. I didn't argue, not then, but something inside me was beginning to fracture. I walked toward the side room without a word. That was where the kids' table had always been tucked into the corner like an afterthought, near the staircase, beneath a chandelier that flickered slightly, as if even the house knew this was the forgotten space. My seat was waiting for me. A plastic chair with a paper napkin folded into a wonky triangle. A plastic cup. A plate already smeared with cranberry sauce, courtesy of one of the cousins who were busy arguing about which superhero would win in a fight. I sat down slowly. Across from me was Owen, Rachel's 6-year-old, who was too focused on sticking green beans into his mashed potatoes to acknowledge my existence. To my right, 2 other kids from distant cousins I couldn't name were absorbed in a tablet playing some cartoon at max volume. The adult table, in contrast, looked like a still life painting. Linen napkins, real silverware, wine glasses half full. At the head of the table sat my father, Thomas, carving the roast as though he were presiding over something noble and ancient. Next to him, Eleanor floated between courses, smiling with the precision of someone auditioning for a holiday card. It wasn't about the seat, not really. It was about everything it implied. I was 30. I paid my rent, filed taxes, voted. I had opinions. I'd built a career that nobody here understood, but which paid my bills and brought me quiet pride. And yet, I was being asked no, assigned a place with children whose last names I barely remembered. The message wasn't subtle. It never had been. To them, I was the baby, the artistic one, the one who chose solitude over settling down. That had always made me an anomaly. a concern, a disappointment masked as affection. I tried to eat, but the food turned bland in my mouth. Even the stuffing, which I'd always loved, tasted like drywall. I watched Isabel laugh across the room, graceful, self-assured, in a dress that probably cost more than my month's rent. Rachel leaned into Leo, their baby babbling on her lap like a living accessory. And then there was Eleanor, moving between them with pride in her eyes. She didn't even glance in my direction, not once. It was subtle but brutal, a kind of invisibility that only family can master. I looked down at my plate. The green beans now had glitter on them, thanks to the crafts one of the kids had brought to the table. I blinked. I stood. I didn't make a sound. I didn't shout. I just rose, grabbed my coat from the banister, and made my way to the front door. From behind me, I heard Eleanor's voice, lightly confused. "Ethan? Where are you going, sweetheart?" I didn't answer her right away. I opened the door. The cold hit me like truth. Then, without looking back, I said, "Out." The door closed behind me. The snow was falling, soft and steady, and I kept walking. The snow whispered under my boots as I walked, muffling everything behind me, the voices, the clatter, the image of Eleanor standing at the door, still processing the silence. I'd left her in. I didn't have a destination, just distance. I passed the neighbour's house, wrapped in garland and glowing with soft amber light. Laughter floated faintly from inside, the kind that felt real, the kind that hadn't echoed through my own family home in years. My car was 3 blocks away, parked under a skeletal maple tree. When I slid into the driver's seat, I just sat there for a while, hands on the wheel, the engine silent. I stared at the house from a distance. From here, it looked like a museum, a beautiful, lifeless exhibit, behind frost-glazed windows. Eventually, I turned the key and pulled away. I drove with no direction, just road. The streets were mostly empty, the holiday lights blinking on every porch, like they were winking at me, some in sympathy, some in mockery. It was nearly an hour before I found myself on the outskirts of town, pulling into the glowing lot of an all-night diner. I'd passed 100 times, but never once entered. It was quiet inside. Just an older couple near the window, a trucker nursing black coffee at the counter, and a waitress humming a 90s song under her breath. I picked a booth near the back and ordered a cup of coffee without much thought. When the warmth touched my hands, I finally felt the weight of what I'd done. I had walked out, not stormed, not exploded, just chosen myself for once, quietly, calmly, but it still echoed like a rebellion. I wasn't sure whether I should be proud or sick. Then my phone started buzzing. The first messages were easy to ignore. Just names lighting up the screen: Isabel, Rachel, David, even Leo. Missed calls, more missed calls. One after another, like falling dominoes. Then came the texts. "Ethan, this isn't funny. Rachel, Mom is freaking out. Just come back so we can talk. Isabel, where are you, man? You're making this a thing." David, I didn't reply. I sipped my coffee and stared out the window, watching the snowfall accumulate across the parking lot. Then Eleanor messaged, "Ethan, come home. We need to talk. This isn't how we handle things." There it was, that tone, calm, commanding, sugar-dipped control. I locked the phone, left its screen down on the table. I wasn't ready to handle things her way anymore. The waitress returned with my meal. Pancakes, bacon. Something about breakfast at night always felt like permission to exist outside the rules. I ate slowly, quietly, chewing through more thoughts than food. This wasn't just about the kids' table. That was just the final, ridiculous straw. This was about decades. About being treated like decoration in a house of expectations I never fit into. They celebrated Rachel for giving them a grandchild. They admired Isabel's law firm victories. They tolerated me. smiled when I visited, nodded politely when I talked about design projects they neither asked about nor understood, but it was never real. I was always placed on a different tier lesser, not because I'd failed, but because I hadn't followed their map. They wanted husbands and babies and dinner parties. I wanted silence, space, solitude, and they translated that as lack. My phone buzzed again. And again. Then a message from Thomas. Don't act like a child. Come back and sit down. We're not doing this tonight, I scoffed. Out loud. The waitress looked up but said nothing. A child? That was Rich. The man who hadn't asked me a real question in 5 years was now calling me immature for removing myself from his stage play. I hadn't shouted, hadn't slammed anything. I'd simply refused to perform. Another buzz. Eleanor again, your sisters are upset. This is ruining the holiday. Don't be selfish. Selfish. As if sitting at a folding table next to a 6-year-old, while my own father made speeches at the adult table wasn't humiliating. As if asking quietly to be treated like an equal was unreasonable. They weren't sorry for what they'd done. They were sorry for the disruption I caused to the script. For the first time in a long time, I felt something sharp twist in my chest, not grief, not guilt. Resolve. I opened the group chat, scrolled past the waves of concern, confusion, and controlled panic. My thumbs hovered. And then I typed, "You all keep saying I'm being dramatic, but the truth is, this has been building for years. It's not just tonight. It's every time I come home and feel like a stranger. Every time I'm put in a box you made for me when I was 15 and never let me out of. I'm not coming back. Not tonight. Maybe not for a long time." I stared at the message for a moment, then hit send. The bubbles began appearing almost instantly. I locked the screen before they could finish typing. Not tonight. Tonight was mine. By the time I finished my second cup of coffee, the group chat had become a chorus of disappointment. "Ethan, this is not okay. Isabel, you're blowing this out of proportion. David, you're making Mom cry. Rachel, you left a holiday dinner to make a point. Really? Leo, I read them all, one by one, in the warm booth of a diner that smelled like syrup and fryer oil. The world outside the frosted window was still and cold. The world in my pocket was melting down. I didn't respond, not because I didn't have words, but because none of them deserved to hear my thoughts, while they were still trying to convince themselves they hadn't done anything wrong. A particularly long message came from Eleanor. I didn't even have to open it to know the tone. I tapped on it anyway. "Ethan, I don't understand why you're doing this. Your sisters are upset. We're all worried. But more than that, this is tearing the family apart. You've always been sensitive, but this is different. This is cruel. You left without saying a word, and now you're ignoring us. I'm trying to keep this family together, and you're making that impossible." There it was, the flip. From concerned to wounded. From "we just want you back" to "you're the problem." It was always like this with her. With all of them, really. When you complied, you were easygoing. When you questioned, you were selfish. When you left the narrative, you became the villain in their play. I placed the phone face down again and sat back in the booth. The trucker had left. The waitress was wiping down tables. The snow outside had thickened into a soft white blur. It was oddly peaceful, like the calm after a bridge burns, and you finally feel the warmth from the fire. I could have driven home. I could have gone back to my apartment, curled up on the couch, watched some dark documentary, and buried the whole evening under sarcasm and wine. But part of me wanted them to sit in it, in the silence, in the uncertainty. I wasn't their compliant echo anymore. They needed to feel what I'd felt for years, voiceless, dismissed, unseen. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Thomas. "Ethan, Grow up. Short, sharp, predictable. He never used more words than necessary. Never entertained anything he couldn't control. Grow up had always been his go-to phrase when I expressed discomfort, confusion, or, in his view, weakness. I smiled bitterly at the irony. I was finally growing up. That's exactly why I left. When I was younger, I used to think maturity meant not making waves, letting things slide, laughing when the joke was on me, sitting at the side table literally and figuratively, while everyone else got to speak louder, take up more space. But that wasn't maturity, that was submission. And I had confused the two for far too long. The waitress came over and asked if I needed anything else. I shook my head, handed her a tip, and thanked her. Her eyes lingered a little longer than usual, as if she sensed I was sitting with more than just a plate and a coffee mug. Outside, I didn't head for my car right away. I stood on the curb, breathing in the cold, watching my breath cloud the air like fog from a slow-burning engine. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Rachel. "Ethan, come back. This is going too far. You're being dramatic. It's Christmas." I let out a quiet laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was expected. Rachel had always been the family's moral buffer, soft-spoken, non-confrontational, but ultimately aligned with Eleanor in all things. She used words like too far and dramatic, the way our mother used place settings to maintain control over the scene. It was easier to call me overreactive than to ask why I was reacting in the first place. I opened my camera roll, scrolled to a photo from a few years ago, our family standing on the grand staircase of the house, posed like a magazine ad. Eleanor in the centre, Thomas behind her like a shadow, Isabel to the left, flawless, Rachel cradling her baby, beaming, and me, far right, barely in frame, shoulders slightly turned, smile just a little too tight. I remembered that day. Eleanor had instructed the photographer to get everyone's best side. Mine, apparently, was off to the edge. I attached the photo to the group chat, typed a single caption, "Here's to the perfect family, always knew my place." Then I hit send. Almost immediately, the group chat lit up. "Ethan, what the hell? What's that supposed to mean? Stop this. You're making it worse." They were unraveling, but for once, I wasn't. The photo I sent hung in the group chat like a slap no one expected. It was quiet for a moment. Then a deluge. "You're really ruining Christmas over a table. Isabel, this is so unnecessary. You're hurting Mum. Rachel, you're being immature. You owe everyone an apology. Thomas, what is wrong with you lately?" Leo, each message was a variation of the same note. You are the disruption. You are the problem. You are the child. Not one of them asked why I felt the way I did. Not one paused to reflect on the fact that I hadn't lashed out. I had walked out, quietly, calmly, with no theatrics, no blame. And yet, my absence felt more dangerous to them than any outburst could have. The truth was clear. It wasn't about me overreacting. It was about me not playing my role, the youngest, the background character, the extra in their self-directed lives. And they didn't know what to do with me when I stopped reading from their script. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I'd said what I meant. More importantly, I meant what I said. That night, I stayed at a cheap motel, the kind with thin walls and buzzing neon. I didn't sleep much, but I didn't cry either. For the first time, I felt more alone and more seen than I had in years. When morning came, the storm had passed, but not on my phone. New messages, new tone. "Ethan, please just come home and let's talk. Rachel, we can make space at the big table." We didn't mean anything by it. "Isabel, let's not let this turn into something permanent." David. There it was, the softening, the scramble to smooth over the edges without actually looking at the wound. Still no acknowledgement of the years. the patterns, the pain beneath the polite phrases and family photos. Then the phone rang, a call from Eleanor. I stared at the screen. My thumb hovered over the red button, then the green. I answered. "Ethan," she said. Her voice was soft, tired, unsure, for once without the polish. "I'm listening," I said evenly. "I don't know what's gotten into you," she began, but I cut her off. "I haven't changed," I said. "I've just stopped pretending it doesn't hurt." There was silence, the kind that meant she was recalculating, choosing her next line. "I never meant to make you feel small," she said eventually. "Maybe not," I replied, "but you never tried to make me feel equal either." Another pause. This one longer, heavier. "I thought I was protecting you," she said, "keeping you close. You always felt fragile." I almost laughed. "No, Mum, I wasn't fragile. I was quiet. You just never learned to tell the difference." I heard her exhale, a long, weary breath. She wasn't used to hearing me speak like this. She wasn't used to hearing me at all. "I'm sorry," she said. And for the first time, it sounded like she meant it. Not as a defense, not as a bandage, but as a slow, reluctant truth. "I don't know how to fix this," she added. "Then don't try to fix it," I said. "Just stop pretending it wasn't broken." There was nothing else to say. I didn't hang up. I let the silence sit between us until she did. I left the motel around noon, drove past the house. I didn't stop, didn't slow down, just watched it disappear in the rearview mirror, like the version of me they used to know. The snow had melted from the roads, but not from me. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. Just finished. Later that evening, I sat at my kitchen table back home, the same one where I did sketches for book covers, where I made black coffee every morning, where I lived the life they refused to understand. My phone buzzed. One new message from Eleanor, no pressure, but I hope someday you come home, the real you, not the one we kept trying to rewrite. I didn't respond, not yet, because maybe, for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting to be invited back in. I was deciding whether they deserved to be part of the next chapter. I looked out the window. The city was alive outside, messy, loud, beautiful in its imperfection, kind of like me. And in that moment, uninvited, uncelebrated, unbowed, I felt free. Story 2. I guess you never forget the moment someone laughs in your face while you're on one knee holding a diamond ring. I'm Ben, 28. Until recently, I was just a guy who thought he was lucky in love. Spoiler, I wasn't. But let me start from the beginning. I met Elise, 27, at a mutual friend's rooftop birthday. Yeah, one of those cliché summer parties with string lights, overpriced cocktails, and a playlist you'd pretend not to like, but secretly save later. She walked in like she owned the place, charismatic, effortlessly cool, and somehow both intimidating and magnetic. Within 10 minutes, we were deep in a debate about whether waffles or pancakes were superior for the record. Waffles are the clear winner, and that was it for me. Hooked. We started dating soon after, and what followed were 2.5 years of what I thought was love. She was sharp-witted and charming. One of those people who made you feel like the world was just a little brighter when they were around. She made me laugh. She challenged me. She made me feel like I was part of something bigger. And there's always a but. I was never quite sure if she felt the same way. Elise had this way of saying things like, "We're just vibing, right?" Or "Don't get all Nicholas Sparks on me." I chalked it up to her being playful. Me? I've always been a bit of a romantic, write love notes, remember anniversaries, the whole deal. She rolled her eyes at stuff like that, but I figured we balanced each other out. Opposites attract. Right? Wrong. Very, very wrong. The idea of proposing wasn't impulsive. I'd been thinking about it for months. I talked to her parents. They were kind, warm, and genuinely seemed thrilled. I planned everything meticulously. I even found this tiny Italian place where we'd had our first real date, the one where we ended up eating spaghetti while sitting on milk crates because all the tables were full. Nostalgic, intimate, perfect. I rented out the back patio, set up candles, hired a guitarist, invited our closest friends and family. Even Elise's best friend Kayla flew in from Seattle. Everyone was in on it, except her, or so I thought. When the night arrived, I was a mess of nerves. Elise looked stunning. The lighting was warm, laughter floated through the air, and it felt like the world was quietly cheering me on. The dessert came out, and sitting atop a plate of tiramisu was a glass dome holding the ring. I stood, took her hand, launched into my clumsy, rehearsed speech, voice cracking, hands sweating, heart pounding like a bass drum. And she laughed. Not a nervous laugh. Not the kind you do when you're overwhelmed with joy. No. This was a sharp, disbelieving, you've got to be kidding me kind of laugh. She looked at Kayla, who was holding up her phone, recording, and said, "Oh my God, he actually did it." Then she patted my shoulder, like I was some clueless intern who brought coffee to the wrong meeting, and said, "Ben, you weren't supposed to take this seriously." And she walked off. I stayed there, frozen, one knee on the cobblestone, still holding the ring like some deranged magician who forgot the punchline to his trick. Silence fell over the patio like a wave. Forks paused mid-air. My best friend Mark looked like he was about to hurl a chair across the courtyard. Eventually, I stood, shoved the ring into my pocket, and sat back down. Someone poured me a glass of wine. I didn't ask who. I just drank it. Elise didn't come back. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying it. The way she laughed, the pity in her eyes, the way her parents looked like they wanted to melt into the pavement. The next morning, I woke up to chaos. My phone was blowing up, texts, missed calls, and a TikTok notification from a coworker I hadn't spoken to in a year. The video me, on one knee, hands shaking, Elise's voice crystal clear. "You weren't supposed to take this seriously." The video ended with my stunned face staring into nothing. The words #proposal_fail in bold white letters, and violin music playing ironically in the background. It had over 250,000 views. "Guess who posted it, Kayla?" Caption, "We told him not to." And just like that, the truth began to unravel. They knew. Elise knew. They all knew. My proposal wasn't just rejected. It was planned, scripted, filmed, like some kind of reality show plot twist. I didn't get a text, or a call, or even a damn emoji from Elise. Not even a sorry. I sent her a message that said, "Can we talk? I deserve to understand." She left it on red. The silence screamed louder than anything else. For a few days, I wallowed. I sat on the floor of my apartment, surrounded by pizza boxes and regret, watching the views tick up on the video. The comments were brutal. People saying I was dense, saying she never liked me, calling me a walking red flag detector that didn't work. But then, something shifted. I got a message from someone I barely remembered, Amber, a friend of Elise's I'd met once at a New Year's party. She wrote, "You didn't deserve that. Elise has been a mess for months. You were the only real thing in her life. Don't let them gaslight you into thinking you were the joke." I stared at the message, unsure what to believe. Then she followed up with something that burned the air around me. She got back with her ex a few weeks before the proposal. "She never told you." I tried to warn her, but she wanted the drama. That's when it all clicked. While I was planning ring sizes and writing speeches, Elise was texting the same guy she once called the biggest walking mistake of her life. The guy who cheated on her, lied to her, ghosted her. They were hanging out again, and she knew about the proposal a week ahead. One of my friends let it slip in a group chat. She saw the message, told Kayla, and instead of calling it off, they decided to let it happen, film it, share it, laugh at it, laugh at me. They didn't stop me, because humiliating me was part of the plan. That realization was worse than the actual rejection. This wasn't just heartbreak, it was betrayal. A calculated, cold, humiliating betrayal. I didn't throw the ring out. Not yet. Because in that moment, sitting there with truth crashing over me like waves, I decided something. I wasn't going to let it end like that. If they wanted a show, they were going to get one. After Amber dropped that bomb, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't even reply for a few hours. I just sat there, staring at my phone, feeling this weird kind of quiet in my chest. Like everything had snapped into focus. I wasn't confused anymore. I wasn't lost. I was done. That kind of done, where the tears dry up and your brain starts ticking like a clock. Not out of revenge, at least not right away, but from needing something, anything, to make sense of what just happened. I thanked Amber, told her I appreciated her honesty. She sent a few more messages, apologies, bits of gossip I didn't ask for. A screenshot or two of Elise's texts where she called the proposal cringe and inevitable. I should have felt crushed. But I didn't, because something clicked in my head, like a switch getting flipped. I was no longer the guy begging for an answer. I was the guy who'd just survived the worst night of his life and realized he still had air in his lungs. So I did what any logical person would do when their ex publicly humiliates them and walks away like it was some kind of skit. I disappeared, digitally anyway, deleted every social app, unfollowed, untagged, everythinged. I didn't want to be part of her narrative anymore. I needed to reclaim mine, and it turns out I didn't have to lift a finger. Because Karma had her phone out and was already recording. The TikTok exploded. At first, people laughed, said I was clueless, a simp, some dude who didn't see the signs. But the mood shifted quick. Once the context started leaking the fact that Elise knew about the proposal, the way her friend filmed it with a smile, the way no one on her side warned me, people got mad. Not for me necessarily, just mad in general. At the coldness, the performative cruelty, the smugness, and then someone still don't know who leaked screenshots. Texts between Elise and Kayla a week before the dinner. He's totally gonna do it. Ugh, I know. Just let him. It'll be a great story. You're evil, but I'm here for it. That was the beginning of the end for her. Comments turned. Influencers got a hold of it. Think pieces popped up about toxic relationships, masked as main character energy. One girl did a 10-minute video essay breaking down Elise's micro-expressions in the proposal clip, like it was a criminal case. And Elise? She tried to spin it. Posted a Notes app apology about mental health, mixed signals, and how some things should remain private. Yeah, good luck with that. Her comment section, not buying it, brands she collabed with, quietly unfollowed her. And me? I stayed silent. Didn't post, didn't explain, didn't leak anything myself. I just kept living, privately, quietly, focused on stuff I'd been neglecting. Hit the gym again, cleaned out my apartment, reconnected with friends I ghosted during the relationship, got into therapy. Shout to doctor. Manning Guy helped me untangle more knots in my head in 3 weeks than I had in the last 3 years. One night, about a month after the whole thing, I found myself staring at the ring box again. Still closed, still just sitting there like it held a question I couldn't answer. I didn't throw it away. Didn't sell it. Instead, I took a picture of it. Just the box, sitting on my windowsill, sunlight catching the edge. I posted it on Instagram. First thing I'd posted since the whole thing. Caption, bullet dodged. That's it. No names, no drama. Just 3 words. It got shared like wildfire. People knew. And not even 2 hours later, my phone lit up. Elise. First time she reached out since walking off that patio. Text said, "That was low." I didn't answer. Just stared at the screen, then let the notification disappear. She tried again a few days later. This time just said, "Can we talk?" And for a minute, I almost didn't reply. I'd moved on, or at least started to. But some small part of me wanted to see if she'd actually own up, if she'd even try. So, I said yes. We met at a quiet cafe near her place. Neutral ground. The kind of place where nobody cries loud enough to get attention. She walked in like she hadn't ruined my life on the internet. Like this was a casual catch-up. Like we were old friends who just lost touch. She smiled, sat down, ordered her oat milk latte. Didn't ask if I wanted anything. "Hey," she said, "you look good." I didn't respond. Just watched her, wondering if this was another performance. She started talking, said she'd been going through a lot. Hadn't expected it to all blow up like that she was working on herself. No apology, just soft, toned excuses dressed up like introspection. Then she said, "I miss you." That's when I almost laughed. She talked about starting over, rebuilding, said she hadn't been seeing anyone, that maybe this whole thing was a wake-up call, that maybe it showed her what she lost. And when she finally stopped rambling, I leaned back in my chair, took a deep breath, and said, "I didn't agree to meet because I wanted to get back together." She blinked, like she couldn't process that sentence. I smiled, not mean, not smug, just enough to let her know I was in control now. I agreed because I wanted to see if you'd actually say it. If you'd sit here and pretend like you didn't laugh in my face, like you didn't film it, like you didn't let it happen. Silence. She opened her mouth to speak, but I raised a hand. "No, you don't get to spin this. You knew, and you let me walk into it with a smile on your face." I stood up, left a 10 on the table, looked at her one last time and said, "I loved you, fully. And you never respected me for it, but I do now. So this is me choosing myself." Then I walked out. Didn't look back. It's been a few months since that coffee shop. Since I looked her in the eye and told her, plain and simple, that I was done. And I meant it. I walked out of that place lighter, like I'd finally dropped a weight I didn't even realize I'd been carrying for years. Not just the ring, or the memory of that night, or the silence after, all of it. The second guessing, the wondering if I wasn't enough, the shame. Gone. You'd think after something like that, I'd be angry, bitter, wishing karma would hit harder. But the truth, I didn't need to swing back. She did the damage all on her own. The internet never forgot. That video kept floating around, even after she tried to scrub it. Even after she wiped half her socials clean and tried the healing era posts with moody quotes and ocean selfies. People weren't buying it. Not after the screenshots. Not after the laughing video. Not after the influencer breakdowns dissecting her actions like a case study in cruelty. And slowly, quietly, things started falling apart for her. I heard from mutuals she lost a couple brand deals. One of them put out a vague statement about prioritizing kindness in our partnerships. Her ex, the one she left me for, the one she snuck around with behind my back? Yeah, He cheated on her, ghosted her a month later. Classic. She tried to bounce back, posted some emotional poems, went live to clear the air, but that kind of spotlight doesn't go off easy. And when people start seeing through the polished smile, it's hard to rebuild the story. But me? I didn't need to rebuild. I needed to breathe. So I moved out of the apartment, out of the city, out of the mental loop I'd been stuck in. New job, new place, fresh start. No grand declarations. No big moves, just slow, steady change. I started running in the mornings. First, just to feel something other than stress. Then because it became a kind of meditation. The rhythm of my feet, the cold air in my lungs, it reminded me I was still here, still moving. Made new friends. Not the kind who only exist in tagged photos and group chats, but real ones. People who showed up with takeout when I had a bad day. People who never once asked me what I did wrong to get laughed at like that. Started dating again too, slowly, carefully. I wasn't looking for some grand, sweeping romance this time. Just honesty, kindness, a laugh that wasn't at my expense. And one day I met someone who smiled like they meant it, who asked about my day and actually listened. And it felt calm, not fireworks, not chaos, peace. And I think maybe that's what healing really looks like. Not revenge, not making them regret everything. Just waking up one day and realizing you don't care if they do. Funny thing is, Elise reached out again. 6 months after our last conversation, long email pages of it. Said she'd been in therapy, said she was working through her past, said she never meant to hurt me, she was just in a dark place, said I was the only person who ever really saw her. I didn't respond, not out of spite, not out of pride, just because there was nothing left to say. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is stay silent, not to punish them, but to protect yourself. I still have the ring. Not because I want it, not because I can't let go, but because it's a reminder of who I was, of what I believed, of how far I've come. It's tucked in the back of a drawer, right next to the journal I started that night, the one I filled with every raw, bleeding thought I couldn't say out loud. I don't open it much anymore. But I don't throw it away either. We carry our scars. Not to mourn the pain, but to remember the lessons. So if you're reading this, if you've ever been blindsided, laughed at, betrayed by someone who made you feel small, let me tell you something. You will stand up again. You will look back and realize their laughter doesn't define you. And one day you'll smile. Not because they hurt you, but because they don't have that power anymore. I'm not broken. I'm not bitter. I'm better. And I'm free. Story 3. I don't even know how to begin this, but I guess the start is as good a place as any. My name's Tessa, I'm 29, and just last week I was 5 weeks away from marrying the man I thought I'd grow old with. His name's Ryan, also 29, and up until a few days ago, I would have told you he was kind, goofy, fiercely loyal to his friends, and the love of my life. Now, I don't even recognize the guy. Ryan has been best friends with Lila since they were 4 years old. She's 29 too. Before your imagination goes wild, let me be clear, Lila's a lesbian. She's one of those ride or die types who always shows up for her friends. She's tall, lean, usually dressed in jeans and band tees, and often mistaken for just one of the guys. But anyone who knows her knows she's all woman, warm, grounded, and zero drama. Ryan, Lila, and their other 2 best friends, Matt and Chris, have always been a tight-knit group. Think of them as a second family. I've never once felt uncomfortable about Lila being so close to Ryan. If anything, I always appreciated how fiercely she had his back. Last weekend was Ryan's bachelor party. Nothing sketchy, supposedly. They booked an Airbnb in this beach town known for mellow bachelor and bachelorette getaways. They had some kayaking and scuba diving planned, nothing wild at least. That's what I was told. It was supposed to be a chill celebration. 6 guys total: Ryan, Matt, Chris, Lila, and 2 other friends I didn't know too well, Jake and Nolan. Friday night went off without a hitch from what I heard: dinner, drinks, a club, then back to the house. But Saturday night? That's when everything came crashing down. Apparently, after the club, Matt and Chris brought 2 women they met back to the Airbnb. Everyone else stayed in the living room, drinking and talking. That's when things turned. Jake and Nolan started griping that they hadn't gotten the full bachelor party experience, whining about the lack of eye candy. Their words. Crude, immature, gross. Lila told them to knock it off, they were ruining the vibe. That's when things got twisted. Jake said something like, "If we can't see hot girls, why not Lila?" Then the 2 of them tried to physically strip her in front of everyone. Let me be very clear, this wasn't some prank or drunken stupidity. It was deliberate, Lila screamed. She fought them off, but it was 2 men against her. She says Ryan didn't do anything to stop it. Worse, he laughed and egged them on. Matt and Chris heard the commotion and burst in, pulling the guys off her and getting her into a bedroom with the 2 girls they'd brought back. Chris doesn't drink due to a medical condition, and thank God for that, because he kept a level head. He, Matt, Lila, and the girls left the house right after. They packed up and drove Lila to her parents' place an hour away. She was hysterical, terrified to go back to her own apartment in case any of them tried to find her. Matt showed up at my apartment at 7 a.m. the next morning. He looked exhausted and angry. He told me everything, said he didn't know what he'd do if he ever saw Ryan again, that if Lila pressed charges, he'd back her 100%. Then he left. Ryan didn't show up until the afternoon, looking casual and acting like it was any other day. That changed real fast when I told him Matt had come by. He started fumbling, calling the whole thing a joke that got out of hand. A joke? I told him Lila might be going to the police. His face went pale. He said she'd blocked him and that he wanted to talk to her. I told him she wasn't home and she wasn't going to be not with him lurking around. I asked him to leave. He cried. Literally sat on the edge of the couch, crying, saying it was all a misunderstanding and he never meant for it to go that far. I only listened out of respect for the 2 years we'd spent together, but I didn't believe a word. I told him we were done. He didn't want to go, but I made him. And as soon as the door shut behind him, I collapsed. I don't know what to do. I haven't told many people yet. Only Matt and Chris know I broke up with him. I haven't spoken to Lila. She's not in a place to talk. I texted her to let her know I'm here for her and that I've ended things with Ryan, but she hasn't responded. I understand. My wedding is supposed to be in 5 weeks. The venue, caterers, the dress, all of it. But right now, none of that matters. I'm just trying to keep my head above water. The next day was a blur. I didn't sleep. Just sat up all night staring at the walls, trying to process everything. Ryan had cheated, then stood by while his best friend was assaulted. He didn't just make a mistake. He betrayed everything I thought I knew about him. I finally called my parents and told them the wedding was off. My dad didn't ask questions. My mum cried but said she'd help with the cancellations. My brother showed up later that day with his friend Liam, and without asking, they started packing up all of Ryan's stuff. Every piece of him gone by sunset. When they dropped it at Ryan's parents' place, his dad came outside and asked my brother if that meant I was done. My brother just stared at him and said, "What do you think?" Apparently Ryan was there, just standing there, watching everything. He didn't even try to argue. His dad told him not to say a word and asked my brother to have me call him about cancelling the wedding stuff. I won't. I'm done playing nice. My parents are handling all the logistics now. My dad even got in touch with my cousin, who's a lawyer, just in case things go legal. Honestly, I'm grateful. I don't think I could handle this alone. I tried reaching out to Lila again. No answer. I didn't want to push, so I just sent another message. I'm here. No pressure. Just wanted you to know I've left him. Still nothing, but I didn't expect anything back. She's going through something way worse. Chris came by later that day and stayed for a while. We didn't say much at first, just sat quietly. But eventually he told me more. Said that what happened Saturday night was only part of it. Apparently, Saturday morning, Ryan, Jake and Nolan bailed on the scuba diving. Lila, Chris and Matt still went, but Lila was super hungover and left early. When she got back to the Airbnb, she walked in on the 3 guys in the living room with 2 escorts. Yeah, escorts. Lila froze. She didn't say anything right away, just turned and left. Later, she told Ryan what she'd seen. He begged her not to tell me, said it was his last bit of freedom. Let that sink in. The man I was about to marry spent the weekend cheating on me and then tried to silence the only witness by standing back while 2 of his friends assaulted her. Lila was disgusted. She said she needed to think about what to do. Matt asked her to stay just one more night. He and Chris wanted to see the girls they'd met again, and since Chris was her ride, she felt stuck. I don't blame Matt, not fully, but I do blame Ryan. He wasn't just a bystander, he was part of it. Lila finally went to the police when she got to her parents. The owners of the rental had seen footage from the security system and called the cops themselves. That footage, along with a video Jake took during the attack, became evidence. It's real, it's serious, and it's all happening. That night, Matt went to both Jake's and Nolan's wives and told them everything. Jake's wife left him. Nolan's wife took the kids and moved out. I guess justice has started in its own painful way. Chris told me something else too, something that shook me. Back in high school, before Lila figured out who she was, she used to be very feminine, long hair, flowy dresses, the whole thing. All 3 of the guys, Ryan included, were in love with her. When she came out and rejected Ryan, apparently he took it hard. Chris thinks maybe Ryan never fully got over it. Maybe what happened wasn't just about drunken stupidity or being high. Maybe it was about revenge, about old resentment buried deep. It makes my skin crawl. Ryan's been blowing up my phone since I kicked him out. Dozens of calls, messages, voicemails. I didn't block him, my lawyer cousin said. It's better not to, in case I need records. But I haven't answered. Not once. 2 days after the breakup, I finally heard from Lila. She called me. Her voice was quiet, shaky. She thanked me for leaving Ryan. Said she didn't blame me, but she was still struggling. She told me the full story of what happened that night. Jake and Nolan weren't just being gross, they were aggressive. They grabbed her, yanked at her clothes, shoved her down. She screamed. Ryan stood there. She thinks he might have been on something, mushrooms or pills, but he wasn't drunk, and he definitely wasn't out of control. He was watching, silent, just watching. Matt and Chris saved her, but the damage was done. After the police got involved, all 3 guys, Ryan included, are now facing charges. Lila said she wants to speak out publicly when the time comes. She doesn't want to hide. She told me she was sorry she didn't tell me everything right away. I told her she has nothing to apologize for. That conversation wrecked me. The wedding is officially cancelled. Every vendor refunded what they could. The dress is boxed up. My dad's been handling the financial separation. I've moved my savings to a new account. Closed the joint cards. I feel like I'm unraveling a life I didn't even realize was tangled. Here's the part that's messing with me the most, though, Matt. He's been checking in constantly, helping with the vendors, letting me know how Lila is doing, but I can't shake the anger. He knew Ryan cheated on me. He saw the aftermath of the assault, and yet he didn't tell me everything right away. He told the other wives first. He kept pieces of the truth from me, and I was left alone to face Ryan when he came back. I feel like I was left in the dark. Chris says I'm allowed to feel however I feel, that there's no rule book for this kind of thing, but it still eats at me. I don't trust anyone right now. Not even Chris, if I'm being honest. Not because he's done anything wrong, but because I feel like they all come as a package. And I don't want any of it anymore. I just want peace, space, silence, and maybe, somehow, healing. It's been about 3 weeks now. Everything still feels unreal, like I'm floating through someone else's life. The day that should have been my wedding came and went. No white dress, no vows, no first dance. Instead, I spent the weekend with Lila. We stayed up watching Lord of the Rings, ordered way too much food, and her mum made a cheesecake that I swear fixed at least a small part of my broken heart. We didn't talk much about what happened. We didn't need to. Just being there, breathing the same quiet air felt like enough. Lila's been amazing, even while going through hell herself. She quit her job, moved in with her parents, and started therapy. She says she's not really living right now, just surviving. But damn, she's strong. I admire her more than she knows. As for Ryan, he's gone dark. After weeks of texts and voicemails, he finally stopped when I blocked his number. But before I did, he sent me a letter. Like an actual handwritten letter. Said he knew I hated him, but he wanted to tell his side. Apparently, he was pressured into the whole escort situation. He claimed he was too drunk and high to remember anything clearly. Said he only got a blowjob, his words, not mine, and Jake and Nolan were pushing him to go further. Then he tried to paint himself as some kind of reluctant bystander, like he didn't know how things got out of control. It was full of excuses. I was drunk. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I didn't touch her. I was just watching, just watching. That line haunted me. He admitted that Lila threatened to tell me about the cheating unless he did it himself. Said he panicked. Knew I'd leave him. And so he acted like a man with nothing to lose. I threw the letter in the trash. Then came something I never expected. My best friend Millie was helping me sell the wedding stuff, dress, veil, shoes, the whole deal. She listed it on her resale account. Everything sold within an hour. Great news, right? Well, guess who bought it? Ryan's father. Through his business account. We don't even know why. Maybe Ryan asked him to. Maybe it was his own twisted idea of closure. Millie asked if I wanted her to cancel the sale, but I told her not to. It wasn't worth damaging her ratings. Let them have it. I don't want that stuff near me anyway. I thought that was the end of it. But then Ryan's dad reached out. Said he bought the items to help me recoup some of the money I lost. Then offered to pay for the entire cost of the cancelled wedding, no strings attached. He also asked if I'd consider having one last conversation with Ryan, not to fix anything, just to give him peace. I haven't answered. I won't. There's no peace in hearing the man who wrecked your world try to explain himself. I don't need his words. I don't need his guilt. I just need him to stay gone. As for Matt, I finally sat down with him. It wasn't easy. We both cried. He told me he never meant to hide the truth, said he was overwhelmed, that when he went to tell the other wives, he fully intended to come back and tell me everything, but then the police got involved and everything spiraled. Apparently, one of the wives logged into their shared cloud storage and found the video Jake had taken. She called the cops, and Matt got swept up helping with that. Then, by the time he was free, Ryan was already back at my place. He said he didn't think Ryan would hurt me physically, at least, and he knew I could handle myself. My brother and I grew up doing martial arts, and Matt knew I'd be okay if things got tense. He didn't think about the emotional impact, and I believe that. But it still hurt. He admitted something else. He'd convinced Lila to stay that extra night because he wanted to spend more time with the girl he'd met. After everything happened, that same girl ghosted him. Karma, I guess. He also told me something that shook me again. He thinks Chris never actually cut ties with Ryan. Said he's heard things. Small pieces of info that could only be coming from Ryan. When he confronted Chris, he denied it. But apparently his reaction gave everything away. So I cut Chris off. Quietly. No explanation. Just gone. It hurts. I feel like I've lost everyone. My relationship, my friendships, my whole future all ripped out in one weekend. But I also found something else. Myself. An old college friend reached out recently after seeing one of my posts online. She got me an interview with her company. It's abroad, another European country. No visa needed. I did the interviews. Got the job. I leave next week. It's terrifying and freeing all at once. I'm crashing on her couch until I find a place. I don't have a plan beyond that, but I don't need one. For the first time in a long time, I'm doing something just for me. The pain isn't gone. I still wake up with a tight chest. I still replay everything over and over. But I'm moving. I'm not stuck anymore. I think about Lila every day. We haven't talked much lately. She needed space. And I respect that. I hope one day we'll reconnect. I owe her so much. Not just for what she endured, but for being there when I was at my lowest. There's one last thing. Ryan's dad said the offer to help with finances still stands. Legally, it's not hush money. But emotionally, I don't know. I haven't said yes. I haven't said no either. Maybe I'll take it. Maybe not. But either way, I'm not looking back. This is my reset, my restart, my clean slate, and maybe, just maybe, I'll learn to breathe again, to laugh without flinching, to love again myself. First and foremost, the story with Ryan is over, but mine, it's just beginning.